The fact that he went to Subway implies that he's an idiot, okay? Implies, in my opinion, a genuine failure. Like, I am actually more worried about this court case. I'm more worried about this investigation than I was before. Okay.
Charged. If you want to come in and explain yourself on the record to the federal grand jury that has been looking at you as the potential target, as the person possibly charged, you have the opportunity to. And so Donald Trump is saying that he received this notice on Sunday night and is being given the 4 days to consider whether he wants to come into the grand jury. Like I said, one of the last things that typically happens in an investigation like this, a very similar thing played out in the weeks before Donald Trump was indicted in the Southern District of Florida in a separate investigation, in that documents investigation that we're also watching for activity on today.
And on that
I did
one,
everything right and they indicted me.
You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of fucked up. Just saying. He did everything right, and they indicted him.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
January 6th investigation, one where we've watched the grand jury closely. It appears it is coming to an end. And now this very firm signal from the Justice Department, from the special counsel, that Donald Trump may be indicted.
I did everything right, and they indicted me.
No, I don't have a soundboard. I literally just manually turn it on every single time. I like Google it and I manually click on it every single time. But it's worth it because it's one of the greatest sound bites of all time.
Related to January 6th, his actions after the 2020 election, and giving him a final opportunity to come in and speak to the grand jury if he chooses. He did not choose to do so in the Florida investigation, also conducted by Smith's office, related to the documents held at Mar-a-Lago after the presidency. It does not appear that he's happy with receiving this news. He's quite offended, saying it's horrifying news and that it happened on Sunday night when he received notice from his attorneys. He was with his family. And so at this point in time, there isn't really an expectation Trump would go in and speak to a grand jury, but we are going to be watching very closely what happens in the federal courthouse in Washington in the coming days. We know that there's a grand jury meeting today that has been investigating Trump and January 6th, and it sounds very likely that they also may be meeting this Thursday and could be looking at a potential indictment of the former president for actions he took at the end of his presidency to hold on to power.
Caitlin, thank you so much for bringing us that. Just to recap the big news that we're laying out in this social media post, Donald Trump says Sunday night he received a letter from the special counsel saying that he is a target of the January 6th grand jury investigation. And now, obviously, as Caitlin is laying out, very big questions of what this means going forward.
Let me read the Truth Social post here so people can figure out what exactly was said. Again, this is said by Donald Trump. At this point, he is the source of this information. He wrote, deranged Jack Smith, the prosecutor with Joe Biden's DOJ, sent a letter. Again, it was...
They're not doing the voice, though. Like at this point, I think news media has to fucking hire like a Trump impersonator so that they're constantly doing his voice every time they read his messages, because you got to do that. You got to do that. Bar Vision, explaining how I see the world. Thank you for 40K subs on YouTube. Says Luffy is a terrorist father figure, brother, and his inspiration are all terrorists and freedom fighters. Luffy is a royal terrorist. Yeah. All of the fucking anime explainers agree with me. I don't give a fuck what some random Twitter account says. Every single time they talk about it, every single time they talk about the Luffy shit, like, they just look bad. Fuck. The health data kind of sucks, dude. It says, I'm looking at my like stand minutes and it says I only stood up yesterday for 4 total minutes. Like that's not true. You know what I mean? Oh, wait, never mind. Oh, that's just today. I'm looking at my health shit. Like exercise minutes today, 4 minutes of exercise so far. Yesterday, 44 minutes of exercise total. The cop threatened me with what? Is there like a fitness app for the Apple Watch? Is that what I'm looking at the health one? Maybe that's the problem. Because it's like. What are you trying to find? I'm trying to find like, I want this to like actively log all of my data, all of my moves, like when I'm moving around. You know what I mean? And it's kind of annoying that it thinks that I'm not walking more than I was last month when I definitely am walking more because I'm like actively walking on the walking desk. You absolutely murdered that doggy with training today. Oh my gosh, she's so cute passed out like that. Yeah, I walked around a lot. Missed this gem of a dono last night. Shows up in health. The fitness app is for tracking your calories, standing hours, and exercise minutes. It's fitness on your phone. Your wrists are on the desk a lot of times. Notice this at work too because I have a standing desk. I'm pretty sure that it only measures standing time by how much your watch is at your side. Apple Watch's stand data is weird. It won't count if you're just standing. It'll most reliably count it if you're moving while standing. That is weird. You know how big dog puppies can get injured if they walk too much? Yeah, I'm not walking that much, dude. Chill out.
Sunday night stating that I am a target, and targets in all caps, of the January 6th grand jury investigation and giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and an indictment. That, again, was the statement posted by Donald Trump himself, who is right now the source of this information, that he is a target of the January 6th investigation, which is a major development. If so, let's go to Paula Reed. I understand we have Paula Reed, who's in Florida, who can weigh in on this. Paula.
It is incredibly significant because Special Counsel Jack Smith is conducting 2 separate investigations into the former president and some of his associates. One of those is into the possible mishandling of classified documents. That's why we're in Florida today. There is a hearing, the first hearing before the Trump-appointed judge who's going to oversee that case. In court today, we expect them to talk about a trial date, which is significant because at the core of Trump's legal strategy is an effort to delay this trial at least until after the 2024 election. Now, he's also under investigation for efforts to overturn the 2020 election, and it was not clear. It was just not clear if he would be charged. But as he indicates in this statement, which we have not verified independently with the special counsel's office, he suggests that he has received a target letter, which he is correct, usually means that an indictment is going to be coming soon. Now, he has the opportunity to go before the grand jury. It is unlikely he will do that. He did not do that after receiving a target letter in the Mar-a-Lago investigation. But it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few hours here because his legal team, they're expected in court here in Florida in just a few short hours, likely going to face a lot of questions from reporters who are here to cover his other ongoing criminal trial.
All right, Paula Reed in Florida. Stand by. Much more for you in just a moment.
All right, let's go to our Ellie Honig, who is here to give us some sense of what all of this means. First of all, Donald Trump making very clear this is his statement. We have not confirmed that this actually has happened yet, but saying he's received this target letter and that it definitely means he's going to be arrested and charged. Is he correct?
He's mostly correct. Assuming that this is true, assuming that DOJ has actually sent a formal target letter, what that means is that DOJ believes Donald Trump is a, quote, putative, meaning a very likely defendant, and that DOJ has evidence linking him to a crime. You do not have to send a target letter at the Justice Department, but it's common practice. And we know Jack Smith sends target letters because within a week or so of the Mar-a-Lago indictment, Jack Smith did, in fact, send a target letter to Donald Trump. So assuming that has happened again here, this is a very telling moment into this investigation.
What's the process now?
So the process is Jack Smith has sent this letter. Donald Trump will, again, assuming the truth of this, be given 4 days to appear in the grand jury if he wants. He will not do that. That would be incredibly self-damaging to do that. Jack Smith now can control if and when the grand jury votes on an indictment. Assuming he gets to a point where he believes I've given the grand jury my evidence, Jack Smith can then go into the grand jury with a draft indictment saying, here are the defendants I propose to charge, here are the charges I propose to bring, and then instruct the grand jury as to the law, and then take a vote from the grand jury. And assuming they vote yes, which grand juries almost always do, then we will have an indictment. Now, it could be sealed for a while, meaning there could be a moment in time where we know that there's an indictment, but we don't actually get to see it. So that's what we're looking at. And again, according to this, on a fairly short time frame.
In the Mar-a-Lago documents case, he received a target letter. He was indicted.
Within days.
Within days. In this case, he is saying he received a target letter. That is why there is an expectation that he could be indicted. In the Mar-a-Lago documents case, his lawyers also went in to meet with Justice Department lawyers to basically talk him out of, charging, which is what happens. We don't know if there's been that meeting. Would that happen before or after a target letter typically?
So there's no rule on that. You typically would give a person's defense lawyers a last chance to come in and try to talk you out of it. That did happen in the Mar-a-Lago case. We don't know if that's happened here. It's possible that that happened, and we don't know about it publicly. It's possible they did it by a phone call or a Zoom or some location that we weren't able to spot.
Okay, this is like the dumbest angle to cover the story on, actually. But hey. All right, getting back to it. Hear how Trump and allies are handling reported target letter.
Donald Trump officially the target of another criminal investigation. CNN's Kristen Holmes is closely following how the former president is dealing with his...
I'm not going to lie, walking at this pace is a little boring, though. Like, it's at least more fun when I'm, like, really going fast, like a little bit faster. But I guess I could do it for a lot longer.
It's growing legal jeopardy. So you're getting word now of an urgent effort, I understand, to figure out if anyone else has received a target letter.
That's right, Anderson. As soon as they got this target letter, they started making calls to lawyers, to allies, anyone involved in the January 6th investigation who might have an answer as to who, if anyone else, got a target letter. Now, I am told as of now, they have not identified anyone else who got a target letter, but of course, they are still making the calls. The reason that they are doing this is it's going to give them some sort of insight into what the evidence is against Donald Trump and what exactly a trial or charges might look like against the former president. And part of this is because some members of his team were surprised at the timing of the target letter. Now, they have long anticipated that he was going to be indicted several more times, but they were looking at a timeline for January 6th in terms of target letter and the movement there being in the fall, not being right now. I'd actually been talking to one lawyer who said they thought that things had cooled off in that investigation. So a lot of calls going on right now trying to figure out exactly what this is going to look like, the timing on all of this. And we do expect to hear from former President Donald Trump tonight. He is on the campaign trail, a reminder that he is again running for president. He will be in Iowa doing a town hall. We'll obviously be watching that very closely to see what he says about this.
All right, Kristen, appreciate it. Joining me now in New York, Jimmy Gangel, Van Jones, Caitlin Collins, Ellie Honig, former Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, and former White House Communications Director Alyssa Farr Griffin. Ellie, just on the target letter, would they send them out to anybody who was going to get one at the same time?
You should. Yeah. I mean, it's good practice. If you intend to indict a bunch of people together, you should notify them with a target letter all at once. And I think one of the big questions is who else, if anyone else, has received these target letters? And just to be clear, DOJ does not have to send out target letters, but they often do. And we know Jack Smith does because he did before the Mar-a-Lago indictments. And once you get a target letter, you are a very likely...
And the purpose of the target letter is to inform the defendant what's about to happen and also give them an opportunity if they want to testify before the grand jury.
Exactly. Or if the lawyers want to come in and try to make any other pitch. So it's interesting that as far as we know right now, Donald Trump's the only target letter we know of. And prosecutors have a lot of discretion in how they shape their indictments. Who do you charge in which indictment? Do you roll them out sort of seriatim, one after the other, or all at once? It could be that they just want one big indictment to focus on Trump, to minimize the distractions and the paperwork that will go with it. And then there's other people perhaps who will be referred to as co-conspirators, or perhaps will be indicted separately or later.
Elizabeth Griffin, you're just joining us. What stands out to you today?
Well, looking at the politics of this, I mean, it's just stunning that we're now talking about a potential third indictment, second federal, of the former president who still remains the Republican frontrunner. And I just, somebody who spoke out the day after January 6th and has continued to since, I can't imagine how different the political landscape would look right now if Republicans stayed the course as they after January 6th with what they were saying. Nikki Haley condemning him at the RNC winter meeting, nearly every prominent Republican saying we need to turn the page on Trump. But because so many people flipped that language and did a 180 on him, he's pulling ahead of anyone despite these investigations going. And I don't know that anyone can bank on the idea of him being in prison, keeping him from winning the nomination.
Jeff Duncan, you certainly wish that they had stayed the course as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would certainly have our party in a totally different position than it is today. January 6th is the headline on all of this target letters and indictments that are out there. But this was a process that led up to January 6th. And I think that's what's going to continue to unpack. And I think we're just missing an easy opportunity to beat the least popular president, sitting president in maybe U.S. history, in Joe Biden. And we just continue to miss it and miss it and miss it. I hope we course correct here. I hope we get to a pivot point where folks wake up on the Republican side and say, you know what, we got real problems, Republican Party has real solutions, and we're going to move forward.
Jamie, I know you're hearing from some Republicans.
We got a statement from former appellate court judge Michael Ludig, who became well known for testifying for the January 6th committee. He played a critical role in advising former Vice President Mike Pence that he could not delay Congress. Let's just remember, before I read this statement, he is one of the most conservative Republicans out there. And he says there is not an attorney general or special counsel of either party who would not bring charges against the former president for his efforts on January 6th to overturn the 2020 presidential election. He goes on, he, meaning Trump, has dared, taunted, provoked, and goaded DOJ to prosecute him for his offenses on and relating to January 6 for 2.5 years. The former president has left Jack Smith no choice but to bring charges, lest the former president make a mockery of the Constitution of the United States and the rule of law. I spoke to him a few minutes ago. He expects an indictment.
Has he said anything yet? The only reason why we know that this is even happening is because he revealed it on Truth Social. So he has said something. He's said a lot. Most importantly, he said,
I did everything right and they indicted me.
How do you respect?
Yeah. That's what he said.
Within days, he does not think Trump is going to go in front of the grand jury.
And yet, so many Republicans are not echoing that. So many Republicans are standing by the former president.
No question. As you know, we just heard, whether they are scared of Donald Trump or whether they want his base to get elected, his numbers seem to be going up every time he gets indicted.
But we definitely need more of that. I mean, that's what you would expect. I mean, if you gone to sleep 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and woke up and it turned out that there was somebody who clearly on national television was allowing an insurrection to happen, didn't do anything about it, and this person was now being charged by the Department of Justice, you would say, thank goodness. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness rule of law applies to everyone. Thank goodness somebody has looked into the facts here. Thank goodness. Instead, you hear this appalling silence and then people coming out and trying to excuse the inexcusable. We need more of that.
But also look at how
appalling
Trump is talking
silence
about January 6th even. I mean, he's saying that Trump made a mockery of the Constitution with those efforts and what he did that day. Trump still talks about January 6th all the time. When he's at these campaign trail stops, when he's out there, he essentially is reframing it. He calls the people who were there that day breaking into the Capitol patriots. And you have not seen the rest of the 2024 field at all come out. I mean, a high school student in New Hampshire asked Ron DeSantis about his thoughts on January 6th recently. And his first response was, I wasn't anywhere near Washington that day. And as Chris Christie said, was he alive that day? Did he have a TV?
I love the Republican answers. Like, I wasn't there. I promise. I was doing other stuff. It's like Like as though the first indication is to clear your own name, because technically any single person could have been marching. You know what I mean? I was doing other stuff. Why are you asking that? Fuck you. Libs never change. I mean, this guy is now like one of Elon's main guys making money off Twitter. So they got unbanned, and now they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Twitter
was he
posting.
watching? I mean, everyone saw what was happening. So I do think it's just a sign of that Trump hasn't veered away from talking about this. I mean, he's talking about pardoning the people who are convicted for crimes related to January 6th. So he hasn't really shied away from this.
Didn't he make an album with some of the prisoners?
He played their music at his rallies. I mean, he's completely recast this as something entirely differently. And so, I mean, that also speaks to the fact that if he is going to get indicted on this.
So what happens next? I mean, from a legal standpoint, how much time does he have to respond, or does he need to respond at all? When do you think an indictment will come?
So according to Donald Trump, he's been given 4 days from Sunday, which takes us to Thursday. Really, at any point after Thursday, we could see an indictment. It's important to understand, it is real quick and easy for a federal prosecutor to finish the process of getting an indictment. In the federal system, you are allowed to summarize. So I think what will happen is a prosecutor will stand in front of the grand jury, say, here's a summary, here's a reminder of all the evidence that you've heard, all the testimony you've heard. You can do that in an hour or so. Then you have to present the actual draft indictment. You have to say, here are the X number of charges, and here are whoever the defendants are, and here are the elements of law that you have to find by probable cause, lower standard, than ultimately they have to prove at trial, which of course is beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's it. Then the grand jury votes, and then the indictment will be in the prosecutor's hands. Now, important to know, it may be sealed for some short amount of time, meaning the indictment may be voted on as an indictment, and then it will be filed, docketed with the court, but we won't be able to see it for some amount of time. In fact, with the Mar-a-Lago case, there was a couple days or a day or so where we couldn't see it.
Trump told us. That's how we found out he was indicted.
Exactly.
He told us.
Exactly.
Republican race for president, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is visiting the early primary state of South Carolina, trying to close the gap with the...
We're going to talk about the North Korean soldier. We talked about the Civil War stuff. CNN or TMZ?
Smith is tight-lipped. He was spied.
CNN is going fucking crazy mode on Jack Smith as well, the other side of the indictment. Doing everything right, and they're indicting him as well.
Of course, on the special counsel's side, that's the Justice Department and its appointee, Jack Smith. Jack Smith is tight-lipped. He was spotted today by CNN.
Wait, Little Rhonda is live on CNN with Jake Tapper? Really? Are you sure? No, he's not.
Conspiracy to defraud the United States, the idea of the false slate of electors as alleged, the notion of leaning on Vice President Mike Pence and others to try to obstruct a congressional proceeding.
Oh my God, exclusive interview with Governor Ron DeSantis. What the
fuck? What is being investigated here. And you can better believe that when you're talking
Little
about
Rhonda.
all the different cases, some involving the state level in Manhattan, others involving a looming potential indictment in Georgia, and of course, a federal indictment in Florida, and maybe one on the horizon for Trump. There is not the requirement of judges to coordinate between these cases, but a defendant is going to have the ability to prepare and adequately be a part of the defense. This is not like the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit, of course, where Trump did not even appear in the courtroom. He would be required to be there, and Jack Smith, in at least the prior case, has said they need about 20 days or so. That means off the campaign trail. That means actually being present. And so there are so many different moving parts here, but the continuous thread here seems to be grand jury testimony from those within the orbit of Trump, not a communication line open between so many others to figure out who has said what. And we still don't know, of course, Jake, who has cooperated with the federal government.
All right, Laura Coates and Jeffrey Sloman, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it. More here from Columbia, South Carolina, and my exclusive interview with the Florida governor and 2024 Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, who filed his South Carolina presidential paperwork just today. And this just in, we've learned that the Michigan Attorney General has just charged 16 so-called fake electors in the 2020 election. This is just coming in. We're going to have more from Columbia, South Carolina next.
All right, this is starting in a second. Let's continue watching this and then...
Going to Subway for lunch, picking up a sandwich, leaving, and not saying a word.
No way. I can't believe Jack Smith is out. outside in front of cameras. That's crazy.
So no comment from the special counsel's office on whether they plan to indict Donald Trump and when that is potentially going to happen for the second time for a federal case.
Target. And just one last.
John King marvels. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump. No, man, it's just he's going to Subway. It's a message to America that Jack Smith is boring as fuck and eats like the absolute worst type of fast food you could have.
Point. Jack Smith, remember when the classified documents target letter, when Trump announced that, there was a lot of commentary. Is Jack Smith making a mistake here? Is he leaving this all to Donald Trump? And then they released the indictment and we all said, wow. Wow, we read it, we saw the documentation, we saw the level of detail. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump. Donald Trump tries to intimidate people. He tries to bully people. He tries to scare you away. That was Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
they also are on the fucking East Coast. You're close enough in proximity to a real goddamn sub, a hero, a hoagie, whatever you want to fucking call it. The fact that he went to Subway implies that he's an idiot, okay? Implies, in my opinion, a genuine failure. Like, I am actually more worried about this court case. I'm more worried about this investigation than I was before. Okay? I'm gonna be honest with you. Subway is fucking awful. There are a million other better alternatives in the East Coast in general. Washington, D.C., not so much, but still, go to fucking Jersey Mike's. Fuck it. Go to... What's the place that does it really fast? They whip them up. They whip the sandwiches up real fast. Jimmy John's. The notion, like, go to a Wawa, go to a Jimmy John's. Like, the idea, the mentality signals to me that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's, like, really stupid.
The imagery was intentional and spoke volumes. It really is.
Subway's way better than Jimmy John's, you fake leftist. No, it's not. You're out of your fucking mind. They don't even have real meat.
Smith can't resist a $5. Turns out even Jack Smith can't resist a $5 footlong. That's according to what we see right there.
I hate to say it, but like the newsbuster Andys are fucking right. Like the coverage on this is so stupid.
Our new and exclusive CNN video of the special counsel at Subway.
Like frustratingly
declining, though, to respond to reporters' questions about today's big news. A target letter sent to the former president of the United States. CNN's Evan Perez was there trying to track down the special counsel. I won't ask you all of the less important things about what he got and how he paid and all that. But what is important is the imagery here. They clearly wanted us to see him and that image to be very different from what we saw in the former president's post, which is that he's a deranged individual.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can count probably 5 or 6 sandwich shops between his office and that location that he was at earlier today. He stood in line just like everybody else, and I couldn't tell whether it was a foot long or was it a. Or
There's
was
something
it a
seriously
sub.
wrong with these people. Like they have a mental illness, I think. There were 5 other shops he could have gone to, and he chose to go to the one that's serving $5 footlongs, but hasn't served $5 footlongs since 2018.
The GOP frontrunner, former president.